Level 1, the Recruit. You are born on a small farm in the hills outside Capua. The soil is thin, and your father works it from dawn until the light fails. Your house is timber and clay, patched every autumn before the rains arrive. You sleep on straw near the hearth with your younger brother Titus. He is loud and restless and follows you into every field you plough. Your mother keeps chickens and trades eggs for salt and oil at market. Some years the harvest is generous. Most years it is barely enough to survive the winter. Tax collectors from the nearest town arrive each autumn without fail. They take their share before your family has weighed a single sack for itself. Your father was a soldier once, before you were born, in a border war. He rarely speaks of it, but you have seen the scar along his ribs. At 16, a recruiting officer passes through the district seeking new men. He offers steady pay, land after service, and food that does not depend on rain. Your father says nothing when you tell him you intend to enlist. He only nods once and hands you his old traveling cloak without a word. Your mother weeps quietly by the hearth the night before you leave. Titus walks with you to the edge of the property and will not let go of your arm. You promise him you will return with stories and enough coin to matter. You do not know yet whether that promise is one you can actually keep. Some nights on the farm you had watched merchants pass on the road toward the coast. You wondered what lay beyond the hills that bordered your father's small, exhausted fields. Your mother once told you curiosity was a luxury poor families could rarely afford. You never fully believed her, though you understood exactly why she said it. The recruiting officer inspects your teeth, your legs, your hands, like livestock at market. He declares you fit and adds your name to a long muster roll. You are given a number before you are given a rank, a small erasure you do not yet notice. You march 3 weeks to a legionary camp on the northern frontier. Your feet blister inside sandals not yet broken in by real use. You eat hard bread and sour wine and sleep under canvas for the first time. An old veteran centurion named Gaius Valens oversees your unit's training. He does not smile, does not soften instruction, does not tolerate excuses of any kind. He tells you the farm is behind you now, whether you are ready or not. You do not yet understand how completely he means it. Level 2, the Legionary. You take the military oath, the sacramentum, before the entire assembled cohort. Your voice shakes slightly as you swear loyalty to Rome and to the eagle you have not yet seen in battle. Training under Valens is brutal, deliberately so, meant to break softness out of farm boys like you. You march 20 miles a day carrying a pack heavier than any harvest sack. You drill with wooden swords until your arms refuse to lift for the evening meal. You learn the tortoise formation, shields locked overhead against imagined arrows. You learn to dig a fortified camp every single night, even when exhausted beyond reason. Valens says a lazy camp gets its sleeping men slaughtered before dawn. You believe him after hearing what happened to a cohort 2 winters before your arrival. Your first true battle comes against a raiding tribe crossing the frontier river. The noise is louder and stranger than anything the drill yard prepared you for. Men scream in 2 languages, and the mud beneath your sandals turns slick with blood. You do not feel brave. You feel like a farm boy holding borrowed iron. A warrior charges, and your body reacts before your mind can form a single thought. You brace the shield, thrust beneath it, and the man falls and does not rise. When the fighting ends, you walk behind the camp wall and are quietly sick. No one comments. Every veteran beside you did the exact same thing once. You survive the campaign season and return to camp thinner and far quieter than before. You send half your pay home through a merchant caravan bound for Capua. Titus writes back, in careful, uneven letters, asking when you are coming home. You do not answer that question honestly, because you do not yet know the answer yourself. Valens begins assigning you additional duties, noticing you keep your composure under pressure. He tells you the Legion rewards steady men more than brave ones in the end. You do not fully believe him, not yet, though you will come to understand it later. Level 3, the Immunis. After 2 campaign seasons, you are granted Immunis status, excused from menial labor duties. The rank recognizes a skill, and yours turns out to be surveying and engineering. You learn to plan roads, bridges, and fortified camps with precise measurement. A grizzled engineer teaches you to calculate gradients and drainage before laying a single stone. The work is less glamorous than the sword, but it keeps you alive longer than most. You help design a bridge crossing a river during a difficult winter campaign. The bridge holds under the weight of 6,000 men and their supply wagons. Valens tells you, gruffly, that a legion moves only as fast as its engineers allow it. You begin to understand the legion as a machine built from many quiet, unglamorous parts. Titus, now 17, sends word that he too wishes to enlist and join you. Your parents write, worried, asking if you will watch over him once he arrives. He arrives that spring, thinner than you remember, eager in a way that frightens you slightly. You train him yourself in small moments between your own engineering duties. He is quick with a blade but reckless, the way you once were before your first real battle. You pull him back from a foolish charge during a border skirmish that autumn. He is furious with you in the moment, and grateful for it days later. You marry a woman named Livia, a merchant's daughter met near the camp's edge. She understands the life of a soldier's wife, having grown up trading with legions. She does not ask you to leave the service, only to write when the roads allow it. Valens, aging now, begins training you specifically to eventually replace men above your rank. He tells you engineering skill paired with a steady hand marks you for something further. You do not yet know what that further thing will cost you before it is finished. A promotion is mentioned quietly, Tesserarius, keeper of the watchword and the nightly guard. You accept it without fully understanding how much the small titles begin to add up over time. Level 4, the Tesserarius. As Tesserarius, you oversee the sentries and distribute the nightly watchword to each guard post. It is a small rank, easily overlooked, yet it carries real weight during a siege. A single careless sentry can hand an enemy the entire camp while everyone else sleeps. You walk the perimeter at odd hours, testing men to ensure they remain alert and sober. Valens taught you this discipline personally, and you now enforce it the same exacting way. Titus serves under your watch rotation, and you hold him to the same standard as strangers. He resents it briefly, then understands, the way you once understood Valens's harshness. A surprise night raid tests your watch system during a grim winter campaign in Germania. Enemy scouts probe the perimeter twice before your sentries catch the movement in time. The camp survives the night without a single casualty, and the credit reaches your superiors quickly. Valens is promoted that season to a position further up the Legion's command structure. Before he leaves your cohort, he tells you plainly that you are ready for more responsibility. He recommends you personally for advancement to Optio, the rank just beneath a Centurion. You receive word from home that your father has fallen ill over the winter. You request leave, and it is granted, though the journey home takes nearly a month. You arrive to find him weaker than you feared, though still stubbornly working the thin soil. He tells you the farm no longer needs saving, that you already found a different kind of land. You do not fully understand what he means until years later, standing somewhere far from Capua. You return to camp 2 weeks later than your leave technically allowed, and no one questions it. Livia gives birth to a daughter that same season, and you name her Fausta, meaning fortunate. You hold her once before the spring campaign season calls you back to the frontier. Her hand grips your finger the way small hands do, and you memorize the weight of it carefully. You do not know yet how many seasons will pass before you hold her again. Level 5, the Optio. You are named Optio, second in command of an entire century of 80 men. The Centurion above you, a hard veteran named Marcus Rufus, tests you constantly and openly. He assigns you the discipline duties no one else wants, the punishments, the difficult reports. You learn quickly that command is far heavier than the drilling and marching you once believed it to be. Keeping 80 men fed, armed, and disciplined matters more than any single sword strike. You learn each soldier's name, his weaknesses, which men drink too much, which men pray before every battle. You feed your men before yourself, remembering a lesson Valens once taught without ever stating it directly. A leader who eats first while his men go hungry earns resentment instead of loyalty. Titus is wounded that season, an arrow through the shoulder during a contested river crossing. You carry him yourself to the camp physician, refusing to leave his side until the bleeding stops. He survives, though the arm never fully regains its former strength again. You write to your parents, softening the truth slightly, unwilling to add more worry to their winter. Rufus falls in battle the following spring, an arrow through the throat before anyone can reach him. The Legion needs a new Centurion immediately, and the Tribune's eyes settle unexpectedly on you. You are promoted to Centurion at 29, commanding the century you once served beneath as Optio. The weight of it sits differently than any rank before, heavier, more permanent, more personal. Every order you issue now sends men toward danger or safety by your judgment alone. You think of the farm boy who once marched north with blistered feet and borrowed courage. You carry his memory into every decision, though you no longer fully recognize him in yourself. Some evenings, alone in your tent, you try to remember the exact sound of your father's plow. The memory arrives blurred now, worn thin by years of marching, drilling, and distant frontier winters. Livia sends word that Fausta has taken her first steps without you present to see it. You read the letter twice in your tent, alone, before folding it carefully into your armor. Level 6, the Centurion. Command of a full century changes how the entire camp regards you overnight. You carry the vine staff, the symbol of a centurion's authority to discipline any man beneath him. You use it rarely, preferring the example Valens once set over casual displays of harsh punishment. Your century becomes known through the Legion for discipline without cruelty, a rare and valued reputation. A larger campaign is announced against a coalition of tribes threatening the eastern frontier. You lead your century through 2 brutal engagements, both ending in hard-won, costly victories. In the second, you hold a collapsing flank alone for nearly an hour before reinforcements arrive. The legate himself commends your century by name in the official dispatch sent to Rome. Your reputation begins to travel beyond your own cohort, reaching officers you have never personally met. Titus, recovered from his wound, is promoted to Tesserarius under your direct recommendation. You watch him grow into the discipline you once struggled to instill in him as a boy. Your father dies that winter, word arriving weeks after the fact through a slow military courier. You were not present, and you will never be able to close that particular distance now. You light a small offering at the camp's makeshift shrine and stand there until it burns out entirely. Livia writes that the farm has finally been sold, the land no longer needed by your family. You feel an unexpected grief at the news, a door quietly closing behind you forever. A rival centurion named Aulus Ferox begins competing openly for the same promotion opportunities you seek. He is aggressive, ambitious, and unafraid of undermining others to secure his own advancement. You do not trust him, and you learn quickly never to leave your reports unguarded around him. The camp, you are learning, holds its own quiet dangers separate from any frontier battlefield. Word arrives that the Legion's Primus Pilus, its most senior centurion, is retiring after decades of service. Officers throughout the Legion begin quietly maneuvering for the vacant, prestigious position. Level 7, the Primus Pilus. The legate selects you as Primus Pilus, the senior centurion commanding the entire first cohort. It is the highest rank an ordinary soldier can typically reach without noble birth. You now advise the legate directly during councils of war, a voice among the Legion's true leadership. Ferox, passed over for the position, becomes a quiet, simmering enemy within your own camp. You learn to watch your back among your own officers as carefully as you watch the frontier. You sit near the legate during strategy discussions, offering the perspective of a man who once marched as a common soldier. He values this perspective, though other officers of noble birth resent your presence at the table. You lead the first cohort in a decisive battle against a large tribal confederation. The battle turns on a single, disciplined charge you order at exactly the right moment. The enemy line breaks, and the Legion's victory becomes the campaign's defining triumph. Word of the battle reaches Rome, and your name appears in an official report for the first time. A clerk in the capital, someone you will never meet, writes your name into permanent record. That single line of ink will quietly reshape the remainder of your life. Titus is promoted to Centurion that same season, following the exact path you once walked yourself. You watch him accept the vine staff with pride, remembering your own trembling hands years before. Fausta, now a young girl, writes you a letter in careful, practice script for the first time. She asks when you are finally coming home to stay, a question you cannot honestly answer. Livia's letters grow shorter and more distant, though never bitter, never accusing you directly. You send silver instead of time, telling yourself it counts as a fair exchange. You are not entirely certain, deep down, that you actually believe your own reasoning anymore. The legate falls seriously ill that winter, and Rome sends word of an eventual replacement. Whispers begin circulating that your own name is under quiet consideration for the vacant command. Level 8, the Legate. The Senate confirms your appointment as Legate, commander of the entire Legion, roughly 5,000 men. You are the first man in your family's history to hold a rank so far above a common soldier. You now answer directly to the provincial governor and, through him, to Rome itself. Command at this level is as much politics as warfare, a lesson Valens tried to teach you decades earlier. You navigate correspondence from senators, requests from the governor, and demands from Rome's treasury simultaneously. Ferox, still resentful after years of rivalry, is transferred to your legion under mysterious circumstances. You suspect a political enemy placed him there deliberately, hoping he might undermine your growing authority. You do not confront him directly, choosing instead to watch him carefully and deny him easy opportunities. You lead the legion in a campaign to secure a contested mountain pass along the frontier. The campaign succeeds, though it costs nearly 400 men across 3 difficult engagements. You write letters to the widows personally, a duty most legates delegate to junior officers instead. The letters are kind, and they conceal the harder truths of how their husbands actually died. You tell yourself the kindness matters more than the omission, though the guilt never fully leaves you. Livia and Fausta finally join you at a permanent provincial garrison, the family reunited after years apart. Fausta, now nearly grown, barely recognizes the man who returns each evening from his duties. For a few years, your family finally shares something resembling an ordinary, settled life together. You believe, quietly, that there will always be more time ahead to make up for the absence. There is, in the end, never quite as much time as a man believes there will be. You think, watching Fausta laugh over supper one quiet evening, of every campaign season you missed entirely. You try, briefly and imperfectly, to memorize the sound of that particular laugh before duty calls you away again. A message arrives from Rome that startles the entire garrison into stunned, immediate silence. The emperor has died suddenly, without a clear or universally accepted heir to the throne. Provincial legions across the empire begin declaring their own commanders as rival claimants to the purple. Level 9, the Claimant. Your own soldiers, restless and ambitious on your behalf, raise you on a shield in the ancient way. They shout that you are emperor, the ritual acclamation that has crowned soldier emperors before you. You did not seek this moment, though some quiet part of you recognizes you never refused it either. Ferox, seeing opportunity in the chaos, declares his loyalty to a rival claimant in a neighboring province. Civil war spreads across the empire as multiple legions back multiple competing commanders simultaneously. You march your legion toward Rome, uncertain whether you march toward a throne or toward your own death. Titus, now a senior officer himself, marches at your side without a single moment of hesitation. Livia begs you, in a letter carried by a fast courier, to abandon the claim entirely. She says the farm boy she once knew never wanted anything beyond a safe and steady life. You write back that the farm boy no longer exists, has not existed for many years now. You are not entirely certain, writing those words, that the sentence is something to be proud of. 2 brutal battles decide the contest, both fought against rival legions rather than foreign enemies. You win the second by the narrowest possible margin, through discipline your men trusted more than luck. Ferox falls in the fighting, and you feel no triumph in the news, only a tired, hollow relief. Your legion marches into Rome, and the Senate, weighing survival over resistance, confirms your new authority. You are declared emperor, a farm boy from the hills outside Capua now wearing the purple. Fausta writes that she is proud, though her letter carries an unmistakable undertone of quiet grief. You have won everything the legions could offer a man of your humble, unremarkable birth. You are not entirely certain, standing in the Senate House, that you have actually won anything at all. You think of Valens, long dead now, and wonder what the old Centurion would say seeing you dressed in purple. You suspect he would only ask, gruffly, whether the camp perimeter had been properly secured for the night. Level 10, the Emperor. You rule an empire stretching from Britannia to the deserts beyond Syria and Egypt. 25 million people live and die according to decisions made within your private chambers. You sleep with a guard permanently stationed at your door, trusting almost no one completely anymore. Every senator who bows before you is quietly, carefully calculating the exact date of your eventual downfall. You remember watching dust rise on a distant ridge as a boy, fearing raiders crossing the frontier. Now you fear the smiling men who pour your wine within your own heavily guarded palace walls. Livia grows distant in the golden halls of Rome, missing the plain, honest hardship of frontier life. She dies of a sudden fever within her 3rd year in the capital, a city she never learned to love. You hold her hand through her final night and would trade the entire purple robe for one more year. The Empire, you have learned slowly and painfully, does not make such trades for any man. Fausta marries a senator's son, a match that ties your family permanently into the city's oldest bloodlines. Titus commands the palace guard now, the only man in Rome you still fully and completely trust. You build roads and aqueducts, remembering the engineering lessons that first elevated you decades ago as an Immunis. You strengthen the frontier, remembering the fear of raiders on a ridge that shaped your entire early life. You rule for 11 years, longer than most soldier emperors before you manage to survive the throne. In the 11th year, a rival general, ambitious and hungry, is acclaimed by his own legion in turn. You recognize the pattern immediately, because you yourself were once that very same hungry, ambitious man. You meet him in battle near the same frontier river where you once crossed as a frightened recruit. You do not know, riding out that final morning, whether you will return from this particular field. Somewhere in the hills outside Capua tonight, a farm boy sleeps on straw beside a quiet hearth. His father was a soldier once, in a border war, and rarely speaks of it at all. The boy does not yet know a recruiting officer will pass through his district within the year. He has no idea what the climb from that hearth might one day actually cost him. And somewhere, quietly, the cycle begins again.